Hello, everybody. Welcome to another informational interview from ALHomecare. My name is Eileen Corbett, and I'm the Assistant General Manager in ALHomecare. Before we start the interview, I would like to ask you to share our Facebook page and like and share this video as well too, please. So today I'm joined by Tracey Noone, who is with Meals on Wheels Network in Ireland. So thank you very much for joining me today, Tracey.
Thank you for having me, Eileen.
Great. So Tracey, to start us off, I think most people would have heard of Meals on Wheels, if not know somebody who probably uses the service. But can you tell me what you did prior to getting involved with Meals on Wheels?
Okay, so prior to getting involved with the Meals on Wheels network, for which I am the development officer. So just to give you a little bit of background on the network, it's an umbrella network that was formed in 2015 under the umbrella of Irish Rural Link, who are based in Moate here in Ireland. So historically, certain individuals would have expressed a wish for a network to come together to support providers around the country. So that network was formed in 2015. We currently support 308 providers on our interactive map. And prior to me taking up my role as the development officer for the network, I would have been heavily involved in community and voluntary work where I live here in County Galway. So when the role became available, I applied. I thought it was something that I could apply my knowledge and my skill set to. And
Yeah.
I'm in the role for 2 years now, just over 2 years.
Okay, very good. That's great. And can you tell me a little bit about the service itself?
Okay, so the Meals on Wheels service is specifically geared, I suppose, towards the elderly and vulnerable people in towns, cities, villages all over Ireland. The network currently details, as I've said, on its interactive map, 308 providers. Those would all vary in structure and size. Some of them would be very, very small, completely voluntary-led small groups who would maybe not have a legal structure, but would be registered as a charity. Those groups then could vary up to a medium-sized organisation that would have a formal legal structure, up to a larger sized organisation, which would probably operate on the social enterprise spectrum, whereby alongside their Meals on Wheels service, they would offer other services to people in the community, not just the elderly, but maybe the unemployed, young families, people who would be experiencing food poverty. So the Meals on Wheels service, then, it's not consistent across every provider. Some providers would deliver 5 days a week. Some would deliver 3 days a week and maybe double up on each of those days so that the service user would have a meal for the following day that they don't deliver. And it depending on the resources that the provider would have, be they either human resources in terms of whether they have paid staff, whether they're heavily reliant on volunteers, and what kind of financial resources they have, would determine how many people they would be able to serve and the distance that they would be able to travel from where they're preparing or taking in the meals for delivery.
Okay, so Meals on Wheels is obviously a great service. It's been around a number of years. So the Meals on Wheels network, then that is supporting the current providers that have already been in place. Am I correct?
That's correct, yeah. So as I say, we've 308 on our interactive map on our website. It's the first time Meals on Wheels providers have been mapped in Ireland. And we were lucky enough in that the website and the interactive map were launched by Minister Mary Butler in September 2021. And she's a huge advocate of the service and promotes it at every opportunity. You know, she travels around the country with her brief, not just for older persons, but for mental health as well. So we have her support and we have the support of the HSE, and we work very closely with the HSE. So we would offer a number of supports to providers around the country in terms of we would let them know about training that would be relevant to them. Sometimes we would be able to offer that training. We organise regional workshops in each. They were community health organisations, but they're now being transferred to regional health areas. We give them access to funding opportunities that we would be informed of here in the network, and we would distribute that out through our database. We offer them support and advice. We give them opportunities to share learnings, to share problems, to network. And we have an annual conference each year. So this year is our third conference, and it's booked for the 1st of November in Tullamore. So that's where all network providers and other relevant stakeholders and agencies would be invited to come together to network and, you know, to share that knowledge and to learn from one another, and for us to have that opportunity to impart to them anything that we think is relevant to the sector.
Okay, great. And so if there was a particular group that was struggling, we'll say even financially, or that, to keep their Meals on Wheels service going in their community, would they be able to contact you for support?
They would, of course, yeah. So they would contact me here in the network, and out of those 308 providers, a specific number of them would be members. So we would encourage all providers to try and take out membership of the network, because we, you know, it would enable them to have that strength in numbers. But we would always offer any provider advice in terms of looking at different ways that they could possibly raise more money, look at different ways of encouraging volunteers into the service, maybe looking at a provider that's in their locality that might be able to maybe provide meals to them so that they can meet the capacity, you know, of the service user that's looking for the meal. So we kind of look at loads of different ways that we can give them that support and advice. And we also identify gaps in the service around the country. So we would be aware of a number of gaps that exist in different counties in the country, and we're pleased to say that we were able to address a gap in Croom in County Limerick. So there's now a Meals on Wheels service up and running there. We're currently in the process of trying to address a gap in Portlaoise Town and other areas around the country. So we offer that support and advice across the board.
That's fantastic. So really, because this service is so popular and it is very much needed in, you know, especially smaller communities, so you're essentially a support group to keep these Meals on Wheels on the road.
Yeah,
which
that
is
would be
fantastic.
correct. Yeah, that would be
great.
right. Yeah.
Can you tell me how the service is funded?
So for a lot of the providers, the majority of them that we have on our map, and also the ones that we don't have yet on the map, they would be funded through the HSE. So they would be funded in terms of, some of them would receive a Section 39 grant, which they would normally receive on an annual basis, either one yearly payment or broke up into quarterly payments. Some of them then, the HSE would subsidise the cost of the meal. So the provider might be charging $3.50 for a main course and a dessert to the service user, but the HSE would be subsidising that meal. So they would be adding in an extra, it varies from provider to provider, maybe €2 or €3 to go towards the cost of producing that meal and delivering it. Some providers then are not funded at all through the HSE, and they would probably rely heavily on the contribution that the service user is paying for the meal, local fundraisers, and the support of local businesses and other community groups. So as I said, like, it's very inconsistent in the way each provider operates, but we would provide that support and advice, and we'd advocate for all of them, regardless of whether they are being funded through the HSE or through another stream.
And it is a very affordable service, you know, for a hot meal, especially in the winter time, Tracey. I mean, you must be under savage pressure, you know, at that time of the year.
it's, yeah, I suppose, especially during the winter months when the older person and, you know, a vulnerable person is probably under an awful lot more pressure.
Mhm.
So the providers they step up to the mark, they go above and beyond, you know, even the delivery of the meal, because our hashtag here in the network is that it's more than just a meal. It's that security and safety check. The delivery volunteer might be the only person that elderly or vulnerable person sees that day. And that
Exactly.
voluntary delivery person can check on Mary or Paddy and see, are they okay? If they don't come to the door to receive the meal, maybe there's something wrong. So, you know, they're that line of communication back to the locality, back to the necessary services that need to step in. So it's an affordable service. The price varies. Some are charging only €3.50, some are charging maybe €7 or €8, but across the board, it's definitely the delivery of a hot, nutritious meal, but much, much more than that.
Yeah, you're right. It is much more than that. It's that human contact where somebody otherwise might not even have it on any given day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, it's just it means so much. And some of our providers would, you know, they'd kind of get the older person to kind of give a bit of feedback, maybe, you know, on a recording or a video piece, and you can see the difference it makes. They look forward to the delivery of the meal. They look forward to the volunteer coming to the front door, coming to the back door, having the bit of chat. So it's so much more than that meal, so much
Yeah,
more.
yeah, sure. I've even seen it myself in newspaper articles or videos, you know, around times when we have storms or severe weather, you know, that it's the Meals on Wheels that are getting out there and, doing the trekking,
Yeah.
getting to that person because of how important they feel that it is, part of their responsibility almost to make sure that this person is okay at this time. Yeah, so
Exactly. Yeah, they're super people, and you know, there's a lot of volunteer input into the service and into all providers around the country. So, you know, you just have to take your hat off to these people because they give up their time, and it's not a huge amount of time. I need to stress that. You know, we're looking at ways of trying to encourage more volunteers into the service. You know, we would only be looking for maybe an hour or 2 hours a week off each individual if they could spare it. But we're also looking at ways of trying to encourage a younger cohort of people into volunteering with the service, not just for the delivery of the meal, but maybe helping in the administration. Social media is so important today that they can help in that aspect of the service. So it's about looking at different ways of trying to encourage more volunteers into the service, because COVID-19 did alleviate a huge proportion of that volunteer element, because the over 60s had to cocoon, and they are typically the age group that choose to volunteer because they're retired, they want to give something back, they have spare time. Some of those came back into the service, but unfortunately a lot of them didn't. So that's a challenge to every provider across the country.
Yes, I can imagine. So my final question for you, Tracy, is how can people find out more information?
So they can find out more information by visiting our website, which is www.mealsonwheelsnetwork.ie. And if they can get onto the website, they can go to the map, they can enter their address, they can click on the county, and it will bring up the number of providers that are in that area. Excuse me. And it will also give you the contact details for that provider, and they can make contact directly with the provider. The public health nurse is another avenue into the service. Excuse me. Excuse me. She can refer them into the service as well. So there are many ways.
Okay, that's great. Tracy, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you taking time out to tell us about this very, very vitally important service for communities in Ireland.
Thank you, Eileen, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you.
No problem. So that's the end of today's interview, everybody. Just a reminder to like and share this video and like our Facebook page as well. Thank you. See you next time.